All right, welcome back, everybody, to a brand new video here on the second channel. We are less than a week away from the Louisville, Kentucky Regionals. And, of course, it's time to look at the online tournament results of the past week post-Dortmund and see what was winning in the online tournaments post-Dortmund, like I said. Of course, with Louisville coming up, I think a lot of players are hoping that they're going to get their last-minute testing in, and a lot of the online tournaments can kind of decide what decks do see play. And I'm interested to see what people were playing and what was winning after the Dortmund Regionals happened, because Dortmund, I think, is going to have a decent impact on what is going to go down in Louisville. Of course, if y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 18,000 subs, and if you want to enjoy the video, leave a like and all that good stuff. And I'll leave a link to play.limitless, the site I'm using, down in the description below if you want to go play in an online tournament for yourself. So we'll start things off here. We got the Redacted tournament. I think I have 6 tournaments pulled up here. We got the Redacted tournament, which, of course, was won by everyone's favorite deck, Snorlax. Now, Snorlax, I think, is still, like, in a decent spot. I think Snorlax did, like, okay in Dortmund. I think the main issue with Snorlax right now, though, is getting over the hurdle of Dusknoir decks. But Snorlax definitely isn't a bad deck right now. It does have its merit in the format. It's still pretty strong, and a lot of decks don't respect it. I do think Snorlax does need a tech for Lugia. One of the big stories of Dortmund was Lugia and Joinville Lugia. Like, Lugia is just, like, all the rage right now. I think Lugia is going to be very popular in Louisville. So if you're playing Snorlax, you probably need to make sure you're teching for Lugia. You can see the build that won here was playing for Temple and Giacomo. We'll see what they ended up playing against here. They were able to beat a Regidrago here in the finals. Regidrago with the Noctowl. This is what, like, Isaiah Bradner was playing to Louisville, and I think the Noctowl is definitely an interesting inclusion when you already have the Ogerpon in the deck. You can see this build is playing 7 Grass and 2 Fire Energy. Played Scoop Up Cyclone as the A-Spec alongside Noivern, so a little bit of a different list. Not as standard as most Drago lists go. It's playing a very thin line of Drago, a 3-2 line. Has the Noctowl, but like I said, the big inclusion is the Scoop Up Cyclone and the Noivern. There is a Thornton in the deck, too, which is an interesting inclusion, because you can Thornton, like, Ogerpon and stuff, and it's kind of a cool card. But yeah, the main trait of the deck is, like, the Noivern to try to beat the Raging Bolt matchup, which is a big deal. And speaking of Raging Bolt, that also made it top 4 in this Redacted tournament here. It's Raging Bolt with Sandy Shocks and Briar. Pretty bog-standard Raging Bolt list. Raging Bolt looks pretty good, too, for Louisville. And we have a Dragapult Dusknoir in top 4. It looks similar to what we saw win Dortmund, of course. The Dragapult Dusknoir deck winning Dortmund might be the best way to play it. I think Dragapult Pidgeot is going to be less popular because this Dusknoir build has a little bit more agency. You're not relying on Pidgeot as much, getting it into play. Like, the thing with Dragapult Pidgeot, you're trying to get the Dragapult out, and then you're trying to get the Pidgeot playing. It makes things awkward. So, yeah, kind of just leaning into the Dusknoir build might be good. And we'll have to see if any more players are playing the Dragapult Dusknoir deck here in any of these online tournaments. I'm curious about that. We have a Lost Box deck here in top 8. Looks like it's Lost Box with Hands, Moon. There's Tomb in the deck, too. Yeah, it just kind of looks like your just kind of a normal Lost Zone deck. There's no Thorns or Raikou in the deck or anything like that. But the attackers are pretty straightforward. The one interesting inclusion is that Spiritomb, being able to, like, I guess, slow down Snorlax and, like, Rotom engine decks. It makes sense to play it. It's good into Lugia, too. That's, like, my issue with Lost Box right now is not only do you have, like, a bad Dragapult matchup, I think your Regidrago matchup can also, like, obviously it's just, like, complete, like, not auto-loss, but it's close. But can Lost Box even beat Lugia right now? I don't know. But, yeah, Lost Box is not a bad deck right now. Like, I don't think it's terrible in this list here. Looks decent, with some interesting inclusions. No Manaphy in the list either. It's an interesting thing not to play Manaphy, because it's like, you play Manaphy right now into Palkia, and it's like, okay, well, they're just going to either Dusknoir your Manaphy, or they're going to go Cologne Prime Catcher with Noctowl, right? So it's like, the Manaphy honestly might just be a dead card in Lost Box, because, like, it's bad, but, like, there are ways you can beat them. If they grid into you still, like, there's lines you can still take, but it's interesting. Because I guess it's like, who cares? They're always going to be able to KO your get-around Manaphy anyways. We do see Terabagos here in top 8. Pretty sure Terabagos is going to be pretty popular in Louisville. I think a lot of people are probably testing the deck going into the tournament because they want to see if this deck is actually legit for Louisville. Yeah, we see this Terabagos list here. No Boufflance or anything, just has 4/4 Noctowl, 1/1 Pidgeot, and stuff like that. Then we got a other here. Yo, the other deck is okay. It's an interesting Turbo Dark deck with, yeah, some very interesting inclusions. We see Munkidori, Okidogi, Roaring Mooney-X, Absol, the Promo Pecharunt. Yeah, a lot of wild stuff in this list. The Promo Pecharunt's interesting. You can't, I don't think you can, there's no way to poison your opponent in this list, right? Because, yeah, Pecharunt's only if, yeah, your opponent's active Pokemon is poison. That's interesting. I guess the Petron's mainly there for the attack to retreat lock the opponent. Yeah, this is an interesting list. There's even a Xerosix Mechanician in the deck. I mean, it's cool to see Okidogi have a result. You know, I know a lot of people are hyping up the Loyal 3 and stuff. Really want to see Loyal 3 actually work in this format. So I guess it's still cool to see it get like a top 8. It went 8-3. It's not bad at all. Then we got a Drago here, also in the top 8 to round things out. The more standard Drago list, playing the Temple, the Jamming Tower clone, does have the Noivern in the deck, though, so we might see a little bit more Noivern and Drago going forward, maybe. I don't know how good Noivern really is, but again, it just helps your Raging Bull matchup, which I still think is, like, not that bad. Believe it or not, I think your Raging Bull matchup's not that bad, but I guess the Noivern can just help it enough where it's like, okay, now you're not losing a Raging Bull. And that was this tournament, the Redacted tournament here. Move on to the Battle Park tournament, which was won by Quathorns. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, folks. I think Quathorns actually is in a good spot right now. One of the things that makes Quathorns so good is, one, nobody really is, like, respecting it or teching for it. Like, you can't really tech for Quathorns, to be fair. Like, I mean, you can play Colones in your deck and stuff, I guess, if you're playing, like, Charizard. But for the most part, you're not really anticipating Quathorns. You're probably not even testing against Quathorns unless you're playing a lot of the ladder. Quathorns is, like, one of those, like, sneaky decks that, like, seems to be good right now. The other thing with Thorns is that, obviously, Lugia probably going to be pretty popular. Now, I don't know how popular Lugia was this past week in the online tournaments. We're going to find that out as we go through each online tournament. We'll have to see what it was looking like in the late nights and stuff. But Lugia is probably going to be a big deck for Louisville. Thorns completely just beats the matchup. And there's a lot of other things Thorns has going for it right now, too. In general, I think it's just a really strong deck. It's even good into, like, Palkia. That's another deck you can beat. I mean, they have the Greninja EX, but if you can kill the Froakie and Lost City it, I mean, you just probably win the game on the spot, pretty much. There's going to be a lot more Thorns we're going to be looking at. I know there is one other Thorns deck we're going to see later on. We do have a Palkia Dusknoir in the finals. No Greninja EX in the deck, so I'm not surprised that it lost to Thorns, because there's no Greninja in the deck. You need the Greninja EX to help beat the Thorns matchup. It's like your only chance, pretty much. I think you need to play the Greninja still in the Palkia deck, but I guess, like, you get to free up 2 spaces, which makes sense. We do have a Trabagos Dusknoir also in the in top 4. This one does have the normal lineup of stuff we've been seeing, the 3-2 Dusknoir and stuff. That's not the only Dusknoir deck here. There's another, well, actually, this one doesn't have Dusknoir. It's a Dragapult deck with a 1-1 Noivern. So this was kind of the Dragapult's way of beating Raging Bolt. Dragapult does look still pretty good post Dortmund. It won the tournament and everything, but the scary thing is beating Raging Bolt, and I think Raging Bolt is going to be a very popular deck in Louisville. Of course, I'll talk more of my opinion on that at a later point, but yeah, Dragapult playing the Noivern is interesting. I don't know how good the Noivern really is into Raging Bull, because you do have to get full value to Noivern, you have to make a lone Noivern board state, which is not hard to do when you play a Turo, but is it enough? I'm not too sure. It's interesting, though. I was able to get top 4. We have another Trabagos Dusknoir deck in the top 8 here. Like I said, Trabagos just... everyone's trying to try it, test it right now. Tord, they don't, like, basically get top 8 at Dortmund with it. I think a lot of players are just really high on the deck right now. They're really just trying to make it work. They're trying to play it, trying to get the reps in, just practicing with it, because I'm sure a lot of players are going to bring it to Louisville. I'm expecting Trabagos to be popular in Louisville, too. We got a Raging Bolt here in at the top 8. Playing the Briar. Instead of Sandy Shocks, though, it is playing the Slitherwing, which is interesting. Then we got another Dragapult in top 8. This one was, of course, the Dortmund build, the Dusknoir build with the Tatsugiri and stuff. Yeah, still pretty good. I mean, the higher placing Dragapult deck was the Pidgeot build. But I think in terms of, like, more, like, consistency, the Dragapult Dusknoir build is probably consistent. Like, if I'm playing Dragapult, I'm probably just playing it without Pidgeot, to be honest with you. I think at that point I've accepted that. There is a Charizard in top 8. Charizard stocks are down right now. I don't think Charizard is in a great spot in our format. I don't think it's... I mean, going into Dortmund, I thought Charizard was, like, one of the top decks. Post-Dortmund, not too sure if that's the case anymore. I think it just gets completely obliterated by these Dusknoir turbo decks. Plus, Dragapult also is popular. Not a great matchup. Charizard is still good, though. Like, I'm not saying Charizard's a bad deck, but it definitely has fallen down the ranks a little bit. This Charizard build does have Mist Energy, though, to help against Dragapult. Decent call. Does still have the Dusknoir in the deck. Is playing that 3-1-2 Charizard line. A lot of players have been complaining on Twitter about why are players only playing 3 Charmander as opposed to 4, especially in this meta where, like, you can literally, like, get your entire board wiped in one turn by, like, a Dusknoir Trabagos deck. So I'm not, whatever. It is what it is. We'll see if there's any more Charizards to look at. Charizard doesn't do as good in the online tournaments, I find, compared to, like, IRL, so it could be one of those weird conversions. All right, we have the Can Cup number 7 here, which I didn't want to look at. It was a fairly big tournament. It was, like, 200-plus players. We had some interesting results here. Like, the deck that won was literally Lost Tina. Yes, Lost Tina won a tournament in the Stellar Crown format. Now, this build is definitely a little bit different. For starters, it's only playing a 2-2 Tina line, but it does have a Thorns in the deck here, which I guess is just a nice, annoying kind of disruption card. Does have that better time into Lugia. You already have the Temple of Sinnoh, but the Thorns obviously just makes your Lugia matchup even better. Of course, you do have the Canceling Clone in the deck too to try to lead in with Greninja. So like, there's a lot of moving pieces. It's more like a turbo Lost Sony deck with the Tina, which Tina's not a bad attacker. One thing I'll say about the Tina is that it would improve your Drago matchup quite a bit, right? Because you at least have a bulky Pokemon that can one-shot Regidrago. And if they want to deal with Tina, they can't Phantom Dive you. They have to Lost Impact, right? So I like the idea of Tina. I mean, this deck does seem kind of cool. It's a Turbo Lost Zone deck with a 2/2 Tina, and I don't hate that. Again, Tina kind of improves some of your matchups. It kind of improves your weaker matchups, and it did win the tournament. It was able to beat Raging Bull in the finals. I'm not surprised to see that, though. Raging Bull, in my opinion, just has a very bad Lost Box matchup. They have Blood Moon or Saluna, not to mention they also have like Sableye, which can be annoying. Now, the one thing with this Bull list, though, is that maybe did stand a chance, as there is Lost City in the deck here, which they could have Lost City the Blood Moon. That's what it was. I forgot the name for a sec. Another interesting thing about this build, there's no Briar, but it's playing Ancient Booster, Bravery Charm split. It's interesting Raging Bolt list. The Lost City's not terrible, right? It was able to get second place. It was able to, looks like, overcome a Gardevoir, which, I mean, yeah, if you have the Lost City Gardevoir, it'd be good. Gardevoir is another deck, much like Charizard, where I think the stocks are way down right now. Gardevoir is ultimately going to struggle against these big Dusknoir decks. Like, Gardevoir has in my opinion, should have a rough time in a Palkia Dusknoir and Trabagos, and I would imagine your Dragapult matchup ain't great either. Even though before I thought Dragapult was fine for Gardevoir, now that they're playing Dusknoir and the matchup's like even worse. But Gardevoir is still not the worst deck you can play. I just personally wouldn't be caught playing it right now, but I was able to get top 4 in this tournament. Playing the double Devo to help into the evolution decks. Got the Mimikyu in the deck too for the wall. Even Enhanced Hammer to tech for Lugia and stuff. I mean, I'm sure Gardevoir's still going to see play at Louisville, but it's just not as good. We do have a Charizard here in the top 8. Now, this Charizard build was playing 4 Charmanders this time and 3 Charizard. Did still have room to fit the Dusknoir in the deck, playing Turo and Kieran, and also plays Prime Catcher for the Ace Spec alongside a Canceling Clone in the deck, and also has the Collapse and a League Headquarters. So a lot of different things going on in the Zard list, but it's a little bit more straightforward. Or consistently straightforward, I guess, because it is playing a heavier line of Charizard, so you are safer into the Dusknoir spam Ooga Booga combo decks that are existing right now. And speaking of which, there is a Palkia Dusknoir in top 8 with the Greninja. The one different card, I guess, that we've seen is the Cynthia's Ambition, which is interesting. But yeah, Palkia Dusknoir, I think, is just a very strong deck right now. I think people figured out, the best 59, 60 cards for the deck pretty much post-Dortmund, I would say, after Stefan's finished with it. Another Raging Bolt in top 8. Of this online tournament, this one, not playing Briar, not playing Sandy Shocks, just all in on the 2 prizers. Does have a Jamming Tower Pokestop split in the deck, however, though. Just interesting stuff. There was a Terapagos Dusknoir also in the top 8 of this tournament. Yeah, pretty standard list. Looks similar to what Tord played, actually. It's got the double Bouffalant in the deck. We'll see if Bouffalant is more common or not. And then finally in the top 8, crazily enough, there was a Venomoth Frostlass Munkidori deck in the top 8. Honestly, this deck is a lot of fun to play. I'm not sure how good it is. I feel like this deck is better in a format where Charizard is, popular. I mean, Charizard's still popular, but that's more of, a ladder thing. I feel like I would expect to run into more, Dusknoir combo decks, but maybe Venomoth is good in a Dusknoir because you shut off Rare Candy. And if they can't Candy, they can't use Dusknoir, and then their deck doesn't get to function. So maybe Noctowl, or Venomoth, is really good into the Dusknoir decks. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't tried this deck yet, but seems kind of cool. I like it. It's cool. Got top 8 in this tournament. It was a pretty big tournament. Like I said, this tournament had 200 plus players. It was huge. It was able to top 8, which is kind of crazy. So cool stuff to see. And then lastly, in top 8, we got another Palkia Greninja deck here. Palkia Dusknoir Greninja, whatever you call it. Yeah, cool stuff. There you go. All right, now we got some more big tournaments here. We got the Tournament of Doom, which was won actually by Pidgeot Dragapult, which is interesting. Again, post-Dortmund, Pidgeot is still winning. This Pidgeot list does have some different things. We got the Dusknoir engine in the deck. But you also have the Charizard in the deck. I think Radiant Charizard is also worth playing in Dragapult right now. A lot of players are really high on Alakazam, and Alakazam is really good, especially when you're trying to piece together big combo turns with Phantom Dive. But Radiant Charizard does improve your weaker matchups like Raging Bolt, which I think is worth trying out. So I still don't hate Radiant Charizard. You can even have some sneaky Zard plays with the help of Crispin. You can Crispin to Charizard out of nowhere, build it up. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with Charizard. I think Charizard is worth looking at within Dragapult right now. And it was able to take down the Tournament of Doom. In second place, there was Quad Thorns. Not surprised to see Thorns lose to Dragapult. It is a bad matchup for Thorns, even though you have Devo and Hammer, which can help in the Dragapult matchup when they play a low line of energy and stuff. But ultimately, Dragapult usually doesn't really mind playing against Thorns. It's a pretty pretty decent matchup for it. There was Snorlax in top 4 here of the Tournament of Doom. This one did put the Shiyu back in the deck, something we haven't been seeing as much, but this one does have the Shiyu in there. No Temple or anything, though, or Giacomo, so not really respecting of the Lugia matchup. There's also a Pidgey control in top 4 here. It's got all the Pidgey control stuff. It's even playing the Regieleki. It's got the Shiyu back in the deck and the Diancie. The Diancie is interesting because against Lugia, which is one of Pidgey control's like worst matchups, you can use the attack Diffuse Reflection to just blow up one of the Pokemon Lugia attacks you with. So it's a cool inclusion. It might be worth playing too in the deck. We got a Klawf in top 8. I mean, again, it got top 4 in Joinville. Like, people are playing Klawf because of the meme, but Klawf is not in the worst spot right now. It's not a bad deck. You know, I don't think I would play it personally, but it's not a bad deck. It can do some funny things. You can knock out Tropicos. I gotta imagine your Tropicos matchup's good. And you do have some sneaky plays you can make. You can donk the opponent with Unhinged Scissors. There's a lot of things you can do with Klawf, which it's cool to see it still have some success in the online tournaments. We'll have to see if anyone can day 2 with it in Louisville. Now, the Snorlax in top 8. This one's playing League Headquarters, which is interesting. Also has Sandshrew in the deck, too. And then, all right, next up in this tournament, there's also Banette Gardevoir. A lot more spice in the Tournament of Doom here. We got a Banette Guardy list here. Another deck that I think is like kind of decent. It was able to do pretty well in Dortmund. So it's a deck that I think, you know, most players don't really look at, but it's sneakily kind of a good deck. There's a lot of really interesting things you can do with it. And I think that if you're somebody who wants to play this deck, I would definitely say practice with it because there's a lot of things you can do, like I said, with this Banette Guardy list. So yeah, it's a bit of a more difficult deck to pilot, but it's honestly a really strong deck. And then finally in top 8 of the Tournament of Doom, there was a Raging Bolt list here with the Briar, playing the Slitherwing also over the Sandy Shocks inclusion. Also has a superior energy retrieval in that list. That was the top 8 here of the Tournament of Doom. Actually, also outside the top 8, we had yet another Venomoth Frostlass deck. So, yeah, that's kind of funny. This is a bit different. It does have the Bibarel in the deck, though. But yeah, this Tournament of Doom also had Venomoth Frostlass outside the top 8. So, kind of funny stuff. 2 Venomoth Frostlass decks doing decently well in big online tournaments this past week. Is that a sign? I don't know. All right, finally, we got the 2 late night tournaments here. Now, Late Night 210 was won by Cal Connor, who won with this Quad Thorns deck with the double Enhanced Hammer, no catchers. It's kind of like the big thing with Quad Thorns was that it was not playing the catchers. The hammers are a lot stronger right now, though catchers are still really good. Enhanced Hammer is really good against Terapagos, because what Cal was doing is, like, against Terapagos, he would go Gust, KO, Hoot Hoot, and then hammer the double turbo off the Terapagos and slow them down. And that's why the Enhanced Hammer seems pretty solid right now in Quad Thorns. Yeah, so if you're playing Quad Thorns, I think this list here that Cal played to win the late night is a pretty good, just 60 to play. Was able to beat Banette in the finals, which is interesting. I don't know how this matchup really goes. I guess, like, you can't play Gardevoir's ability, but Banette doesn't mind that. Honestly, this matchup's probably a lot closer than you might think. I guess it could go either way. I would maybe give it to Quad... I mean, you even have, like, Monkey Dory, though, which is good. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Quad Thorns probably would lose to Banette. I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know how the finals ended up playing out. That's interesting. I guess, like, Enhanced Hammer on Luminous Energy is kind of annoying. Speaking of Quad Thorns, we got another Quad Thorns in top 4. Like I said, Quad Thorns is a pretty good deck right now. If you're looking to play something that I think is, like, well-rounded, not in the worst spot, Quad Thorns might just be the deck to play to Louisville, I'm not going to lie. If you're somebody who doesn't want to play in these, like, big combo Dusknoir decks, you're not interested in Zard or Lugia, I think Quad Thorns generally, like, that good of a deck. I think it's a decent play for Louisville, and it's been doing really good in these online tournaments. They won 2 of them. It won one of the late nights. It's kind of crazy. Also, Goldengo. Yeah, we got Goldengo in top 4. Another deck that I'm just happy to see perform well. Obviously, going off that top 4 Dortmund type here. I've been playing a bit of Goldengo. Even got top 4 in a League Cup yesterday with the deck itself. And I can say this, the Goldengo deck is pretty good. I think it's a very powerful deck, and I think that Goldengo is legit like a pretty good play right now. But it does lose to Quad Thorns, and Quad Thorns is a bad matchup, and there is 2 in top 4. So it probably ended up going, oh, I hit Quad Thorns. Crap, my deck can't function. There's a Pidgey Control also in top 8. With some interesting inclusions, Pidgeot Control with Dusknoir. It's not something you usually see within the deck, but I mean, it makes sense. Dusknoir can take prizes. You can remove threats off the board. Like against Lugia, you can like hail their Cinccino right away. Like, there's some cool things you can do with Dusknoir, so that's an interesting idea. It's actually Liam Halliburton is the one who played the deck, so that's cool. Interesting. The Dusknoir is an interesting concept. Another Quad Thorns in top 8. Oh my god. Disgusting, bro. 3 Quad Thorns in top 8 is a little ridiculous, but I mean, look, I know a lot of people complain about Quad Thorns being a good deck right now. Like, people don't like the deck because it's very boring. It's literally a theme deck, basically. Like, it's a very, like, boring, vanilla, like, no-skill type deck. And it just is one of those, like, cheesy decks. Like, a lot of players at that point would be like, oh, this deck is worse than Snorlax. I don't think I wouldn't go that far, but Quad Thorns, I hate to say it, but this deck having this good success is a sign that Quad Thorns, I think, is legit going to be a solid deck for Louisville. Like, yeah, I'm saying right now, Thorns is a deck that even I've been looking at for Louisville. Like, it's in that good of a spot right now. It's a bit of an uh-oh, I know, a big uh-oh. I mean, it won this late night. It got 2 other top 8 placements in this tournament. Like, it's a bit of an uh-oh. But yes, Quad Thorns legit could be that good of a deck right now. I'm not going to lie. Like, I do think the deck is very solid. Like, we got a Lugia in top 8 here. Got the double Cinccino. Got the Ogre Pawn. Might be similar, actually, to what we saw in the Win Joinville. But like I said, if Lugia is going to be popular, like, Quad Thorns is just really good. And then we have another Pidgey control in top 8 here. So 2 Pidgey controls. This one's a bit different, though. It does have the Diancie, once again, for that matchup into Lugia. But there's no, like, Dusknoir or anything in the list. But yeah, that's crazy. What a late night, man. 3 Quad Thorns in top 8, and it even ended up winning the entire tournament. All right, and then finally, we got the late night 209, which was won by Lugia. So this was, I think, one of the first big tournaments post-Dortmund, and it was won by Lugia, and it looks like it's basically the Rahul Lugia 60. Or actually, it's close. There's a few things different. There's Wellspring Ogre Pawn. There's no Weird Ear. There's Carmine and Thorn in the deck alongside Jock. So it's a bit different, actually, than Rahul's list. Also playing Jamming Tower over Mezagoza, but it does have the Raikou and stuff. I just saw the Raikou and Lightning. I'm like, oh, it's Rahul's list, but it's not. But yeah, Lugia was able to win a big tournament, won the late nights, was able to beat Terapagos in the finals. I would imagine this matchup's like decent for Lugia. I don't think Terapagos is that bad of a matchup for Lugia. We got Dragapult Pidgeot also making top 4 once again with that 1/1 Noivern. So that's 2 Dragapult Pidgeot lists with this 1/1 Noivern that saw a bit of success. I don't know. Maybe this like ideas like there's something to it. Could be. It's very interesting actually to see that. No Lugia in top 4. Yeah, I'm not surprised to see Lugia see all this play post Dortmund because like it was so good. It almost won Dortmund. It won Joinville. Not surprised to see everybody just trying to play the deck. Again, another list that looks similar to the list that won the Joinville Regionals. Yeah, Lugia stocks are way up right now. A deck that I have high on my radar going into Louisville. And I will talk a little bit more about that in like a future video. But yeah, not surprised to see Lugia have all this success post the European Regional Dortmund. And then we got another Gardevoir here in top 8. This one does have a Tomb in the deck. That's interesting to kind of slow down Dragapult and Charizard a little bit. Good into Lugia too, obviously. That's like another big thing. It does play the Double Devo and Unfair Stamp and stuff. Yeah, cool stuff, cool stuff. And we have another Banette Gardevoir here within the top 8. So probably the same 60 from the Dortmund Regionals, obviously. Like I said, not a bad deck. I think there is a lot of really cool things you can do with it if you master the deck. I think it's legit pretty good. There's another Regidrago deck here in this top 8 that we are looking at here. So yeah, the Drago list, I mean, Drago definitely is kind of less popular right now. It's still a really good deck, though. Don't get me wrong, Drago's still really good. We saw a couple of these Drago lists in some of these online tournaments in today's video. I don't know where Dragapult's like truly positioned going into Louisville. Like, I don't know how good it really is, but I still think Drago's like not a bad deck right now. We'll talk more about that in a future video, obviously, but I'm not surprised to see it do well in these online tournaments. This one does not play the Noivern. It does have a Penny in the deck, though, which is interesting. So yeah, the Penny is definitely an interesting inclusion in that list. And then we got an Ancient Box in top 8. This is a deck that I didn't expect to see do this well. Like, I don't know how good Ancient Box is anymore because it feels like Briar and Dusknoir have effectively killed the deck off. But I don't know. Maybe there's still something to play Ancient Box with. I don't know how good Ancient Box really is right now. I wouldn't personally play it. I just don't think it's in a great spot. Was able to get top 8 in this late night tournament, though. So that's a pretty decent placement for sure. And I guess if Charizard is getting less popular right now, maybe it's okay. But, like, I still don't think you're beating, like, Dusknoir, Spam, and stuff like that. And Briar. Like, Raging Bolt is now a bad matchup because of Briar. So I'm not sure. But, you know, it did get top 8 in the tournament here. So maybe there's something to it. Outside the top 8, there was also a Turbo Moon. Another deck that I kind of wanted to mention here real quick. Turbo Moon kind of feels like it's not a bad spot either. It didn't really do as good at this past weekend at Dortmund or Joinville, so maybe there is merit to playing Moon right now. Almost got top 8 in the late night. But there you go. Those are the recent massive online tournaments to look at post-Dortmund. And, of course, you know, take these results with a grain of salt. It is online tournaments and stuff, best of one, but an open deck list. But I do think these tournament results do have an impact potentially on what people are going to play at Louisville. Some of the big stories, obviously, Thorns winning the late night, kind of a big deal. Thorns definitely is going to be in a pretty good spot going to Louisville. Dragapult, stuff like that. Like, Dragapult, Terrapago, stuff like that. These combo decks are going to see a little bit more play. There were some pretty funny meme decks we saw. Like, we saw Venomoth in top 8, almost another Venomoth in top 8. So, a couple Venomoth Frostlass decks starting to do decent in these online tournaments. That's something I wasn't expecting to see, but here we are. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video here. Looking at the online tournaments. Again, Louisville is coming up, so I think it's important to look at them. And hopefully, maybe you all got some good info or decide what you want to play to any of the major online tournaments if you want to play in any yourself this week to practice for Louisville. But yeah, that'll be for me. I'll have more Louisville content going out later this week as we head into the tournament. Hope you enjoyed. I'll catch y'all later. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. Having the road to reaching 18K subs. And I'll see y'all in another video. Bye-bye.